and welcome to the Open Range Radio Show, the radio show where the West is still alive and cowboys are still king. And my name is Troy Andrew Smith, and I'll be your guide across the Open Range. To give you an idea of what the Open Range is all about, well, it's about the West, old and new. And it's about the cowboy way of doing things, and maybe we might just bring back a little bit of logical thinking along the way. We can only hope. We'll have music and poetry by people you maybe never heard of before, and each week I'll have a story or two about some little bit of Western history that you may not know about, or maybe you did but you've forgotten. Along with everything else, there just might be some people dropping by that you'll enjoy visiting with. So get your stirrups adjusted and settle back for a nice easy ride across the Open Range.
From the Cascades to the Rockies, old-timers spoke with pride of Pendleton in '16 and Jackson Sundown's ride. He's seen in half a century more life than most men dream. Through all the pain and sorrow, his face remains serene. He always rode to win, never left it up to chance. He knew he had the medicine to make a wild horse dance. In long hair chops and moccasins, braids and a cowboy hat, he knew he was up there to stay by the way he sat. We called him Jackson Sundown, but to his people he was blanket of the sun. He was there with Chief Joseph when the blue coats made him run. And he rode for all the dreamers and for all the dreams that died. When he came down to the roundup one last time to show 'em how the Indians could ride. Drew a bronc called Angel, a wild black horse from hell. He knew this one could be the one to take him to the well. Angel jackknifed and pitched, sunfished and whirled, but the man who spurred him on was the champion of the world. We work our herds of cattle, one thing we'll never know, the thunder on the plains, they hunted the buffalo. If you never pick a mouse by the color of its hide, never judge a cowboy till he's shown you what's inside. We called him Jackson Sundown, but to his people he was blanket of the sun. He was there with Chief Joseph when the blue coats made him run. And he rode for all the dreamers and for all the dreams that died. When he came down to the roundup one last time to show 'em how the Indians could ride. how the Nez Perce Indians could ride.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, was our featured artist of the day, Miss Junie Fisher, doing a song of hers called Jackson Sundown. It's off of her brand new Let Her Go, Let Her Buck, Let Her Fly album, and she'll be with us later to tell you more about that. Now, every now and again, we have somebody blow in from across the open range and visit with us for a while, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Bruce Boxleitner, longtime star of television and movies and leading man and pretty good cowboy. Just sit back and listen, folks. I'm sure he's got something to say. Did you start in movies or in TV?
I started in TV. I'm of the generation that I came out to Los Angeles in the early 70s from New York. I had gone there briefly. I'd been there about a year. Gone there with a play that I had the lead role in. And I started professionally working in Chicago. I went to drama school there. Ended up going to New York and then through advice from a lot of people there going, go west, young man. It's really what I always wanted to do anyway.
What was the first Western that you starred in?
One of the last episodes of Gunsmoke. Absolutely thrilling because that was a very favorite TV show in our family. Had been for many, many years, so it was quite awesome that I got cast in an episode which I think was probably either the last or the second to the last of the entire series. I was god-awful in it. I looked at it, and now somebody will look it up on the internet. I was horrible in it.
How did you wind up on Scarecrow and Mrs. King?
Well, Scarecrow and Mrs. King came along in 1983. The Western one had gone off in 79. I was working continually, and I did this movie Tron for Disney, which was a feature film. It was a sort of big sci-fi fantasy story, and I had big expectations. I may get in the movies, and I worked with Jeff Bridges in that. I went right back to TV, and CBS wanted me, and I did a short-lived series, Bring It Back Alive, for one season in 1982. That kind of didn't pan out the way they wanted it, and CBS said, look, we'll find you something better. A couple of scripts came my way. This one with Kate Jackson, former Charlie's Angel, kind of fun, and I'll tell you, Troy, here was a dilemma for me because I love doing Westerns. I do. We talk hours and hours about these things. There was another script, so I kind of had a choice. CBS was going to do these two pilots, but this other one was called The Yellow Rose, and it was about a sort of a Dallas type of story. It had a big ensemble cast, and it was about a big contemporary Texas ranch called The Yellow Rose, and it had Sybil Shepherd in it. It had Sam Elliott. Oh God, Ken Curtis, formerly of Gunsmoke, was in it. He played the ranch, and it was a terrific big ensemble. And I read that, and I read Scarecrow and Mrs. King, the funny, kind of wacky spoof of a spy adventure story where a housewife's kind of fantasy life. She's a single mother of two, and during the day and at night she's out with this guy who's fighting for the free world there. And I'm looking at these two, and I'm going, wow. I worked with Sam Elliott again. I had done that in '79 in a Western called Wild Times. I just realized that TV at that time and what was working and what wasn't working. My instincts were telling me the ensemble thing on Yellow Rose, no. This little quirky thing called The Scarecrow and Mrs. King just has something about it, and I went for that. We went on for 4 seasons after that, so very successfully.
What effect did James Arness have on your career?
I have to thank James Arness, who will always be my number one hero, for making the decision that he did, because when we were casting for the pilot of the McCanns for ABC, ABC wanted another actor. I won't mention who, but they were really pushing for, and he had been on another TV series popular for ABC, and they were really pushing for him. I think Mr. Arness had kind of a final say in casting and stuff, and oh my God, it was this huge cast. cast was fantastic. He said, no, I like this kid, I think. He gave the nod to me, and I'm so thankful to him to this day because it led me in the directions that I did. So I kind of, like I said earlier, he's my hero, and he was kind of like an example. I really watched Jim carefully, how he handled, because here he'd been this television star on this, probably the longest running yet hour drama, Gunsmoke, 21 years, I believe, 21 seasons. I just, his behavior on the set and the way he carried himself, it really, it taught a young act myself. I watched what it was to be the star of a TV series and how I think it kind of is a very important role on the set, because if the star's having a bad day, it can trickle down. Everybody's having a bad day. You know that yourself, right? And, keeping it light and keeping it fun for everybody, boy, that goes a long ways, because we've all worked with others that don't work with that kind of work ethic, and that was Jim Arness. He knew your lines. He knew everybody's lines. It's amazing. And that was very shocking to me when I was young. I was so busy trying to get my stuff together that I realized, man, he knew everybody's lines. And yet he had a great time. He liked to joke around on the set, too. He liked to keep that happy. And I never saw him pull some kind of a fit. I'm sure there wasn't always hearts and flowers going on in the show. No show ever has that. But whatever battles were being fought, they weren't fought on the set. So that was a good example. So that's what I mean by sort of a mentor, because then when I went on later to do the various TV series that I did, I always tried to keep his example in my mind. James Arness, I remember when we were doing How the West was one, I remember we were out, where the heck was it? Probably in Tucson area there. And I think we were celebrating Jim's 54th or 5th or something birthday, and I kept thinking, here I was playing his nephew, and I'm thinking, gosh, he's old. Now I'm 60, so I'm older than he was then.
I can tell people that you're a pretty good hand for real on a horse, because you've headed for me several times, and ridden my horses and stuff too. But how long have you been riding? And
that I started with stunt guys and wranglers that actually got me going on that sort of thing. Back in the 80s, after we were doing the Gambler 3 in New Mexico, I'd always, ever since How the West was on, I was always throwing a rope at a hay bale with a head on it, but never really serious about getting on a horse with it. We were in New Mexico doing the third Gambler miniseries there in Santa Fe, and we had a lot of cattle there, and all those guys, Gene McLaughlin, Cliff McLaughlin, Dick Lowry, our director, was and is an avid team roper from Oklahoma. And on the weekends, the guys were using some of those Coriani steers we had roping. And I tagged along finally going, you know what, I'm going to do this. It's the first time I started actually doing it. And then I was doing these Ben Johnson pro celebrity charity rodeos that happened in the late 80s. I really got serious about it. And I went out to Gene McLaughlin's place out in Moore Park area there. He said, come on, and we'll show you. And probably was hanging out there much more than I should have. I should have been tending to my acting career. But I loved it. I did for a long, long time. And then I was going out with these things with Ben Johnson. And when you and I were roping, it had been quite a long time since I had done it. And but I do remember one thing, Troy, and it was I always get the biggest kick out of it, because who doesn't or who didn't admire Ben Johnson? He had this charity thing going for children's cystic fibrosis. I remember we were in Texas, so we were in outside of Houston doing this thing, this rodeo. That was the first time I'd ever done it in front of an all live audience. It was really thrilling. And I actually got 2 steers. Anyway, I remember I was putting my horse up, finished the day, and there's Ben walking by. He looked at me and he said, pretty fair roping today. And I almost died right there. Pretty fair. I mean, he'd never ever commented, but he was, in his way, saying I was doing a good job. So, boy, that meant more to me than any Academy Award or anything.